Hi guys, Maikeru here. This is my video reviewing the new Tier 95 melee weapons, and to say the least, they're pretty underwhelming. They're not a bad weapon, and they are a good upgrade from Kopesh's, but compared to the Staff of Armadyl, it isn't great. The special attack is very lackluster, although the passives are very good. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So obviously they look pretty decent. I'm not the biggest fan on them personally because I feel like the offhand is a bit too small. I really love the main hand, but if the offhand was a little bit bigger, I think I'd like them a little bit more. I know a lot of people have different opinions, which is absolutely fair. That's just my personal one. Although I do love them with a third age die slapped on them. They actually look amazing. I made both of these weapons myself, and I managed to make them at just under 800 KC, and I got pretty lucky. Honestly, the cores seem so rare, I would definitely consider this lucky. I then continued killing the boss, and I managed to get 1000 kills in hard mode, and then I got the skin for the pet. The skin on this pet is really, really cool. I love the fact that they're adding extra skins at 1000 kills, and this one is absolutely amazing. 10 out of 10. There is 3 different things that these weapons provide. One is a special attack called Icy Tempest, which I'll go into in just a second, and the 2 set bonus allows you to have Hurricane and Destroy not sharing a cooldown anymore. This means you can Hurricane and Destroy in a rotation instead of only picking one of them, which is really, really awesome. That special attack is tied to the main hand, and the offhand has a passive effect of allowing the wearer to use the Hurricane ability while dual wielding. So if you are using both of these weapons with that 2 set bonus, where Hurricane and Destroy don't share a cooldown, and you can Hurricane and Destroy with dual wield, it makes it very, very effective. I feel like this passive effect and set bonus is the best thing about these weapons, alongside them being a tier of damage and accuracy upgrade, right? You go from tier 92 with Kopesh's to tier 95 with these, which obviously is just going to be more damage anyway. The special attack, on the other hand, is the underwhelming part of these weapons. I want to start off by saying this special attack is tied to your main hand like the ECB spec, so if you ever swap your main hand after casting it, the spec disappears. This obviously limits its uses and forces you to camp these weapons when using it. Or even if you put it in a EOF, it forces you to camp whatever weapon you're wearing, and you can only use it with melee in an EOF, so it just leads to it being, very, very limited on what it can provide. On paper, it sounds absolutely amazing. It imbues your weapon with the power of primordial ice, and for 30 seconds, your hit cap is increased by 30%, with a 60-second cooldown. On the surface, you feel like, 60 seconds, same cooldown as Zerk, you can use this in a Zerk rotation and it'll do well. But unfortunately, you just can't really hit that hard. I wanted to test out how hard I could actually hit with these with a best-in-slot setup, so I went over to somewhere that I could easily slap up, which was Vindicta and Helwyr, to try and get some PBs there because they're a fun one to do with melee and they can die really, really quickly and they're kind of like dummies, right? You just DPS them down and kill them as quickly as possible. I used everything best in slot. If you take a look at my setup, I have the new weapons. I'm using a Grimoire. I have an EOF with D-Claws inside. I have the new upgraded Gloves of Passage. I'm using full trim masterwork. Everything. The whole shebang. I'm even using the Dragon Battle Axe spec before entering to get the increase to my strength, which is huge. But if you take a look at this kill, this was a PB for me of 16 seconds, but I never ever hit hard enough in this kill to make it worth it alongside the Grimoire. And if you take a look at the damage I deal here, my normal hits can go over 10k, so they were dealing a little bit of extra damage sometimes, which was quite cool. I could see some like 10,700s and stuff like that. But Grimoire takes your crits to 15k, and I never hit over 15k. It was all 14ks and 12ks and 13ks. It never hit over 15k, so every crit wasn't even affected by this spec. Although this was with a Brawler aura, so I thought I'd do it with a Zerk aura and see if that helped. I managed to get another 16-second kill with a Zerk aura, and again, I just didn't hit past the 15k. I hit past the 10k many times without crits, but all of my crits were like 14ks. They never crit past 15k. So again, the spec barely provided me with anything, and it actually felt counterproductive to use a Grimoire because my crits weren't increased, but my normal hits were. So that had me thinking, what if he wasn't using a Grimoire? The spec is so much better if you're not using a Grimoire in terms of how much it increases your DPS. I was just using the new Godbook, the Godbook of Wen, and it increased my normal hits by quite a lot, and then my crits were actually increased because they were only 12k maximum, and they were going over 12k still with this new spec. So I feel like if you're not using a Grim, the spec is probably worth using. But if you're using a Grimoire, the spec just doesn't feel like it's going to give you any more damage, and if it does, it's on your normal hits, and it's only a couple of hundred damage each time, which probably isn't going to be worth the adren in the grand scheme of things. I did the same thing at Hellweir, and I managed to get a 14-second kill there, but I think the biggest thing that's allowing me to get these kills is having Hurricane and Destroy it in my rotation, not the extra damage that it's providing on top of my normal hits. So like I said, it feels like the passive is the best part of this weapon. Although there is a couple of good niche uses for this weapon where it pushes you over that 15k constantly, the biggest one being Raksha. In P4, when you extra action button, you get tons more damage and you just deal those really large hits, and it's really nice to see. But you need such a big DPS boost to actually benefit from this spec. And honestly, I'd still rather Raksha with range at the end of the day, sadly. So overall, I think it's a very nice weapon, but the spec just isn't that great. You never really get that much use out of the spec. But if you wanted to save a bit of money and not use a Grimoire, this kind of acts as like a Grimoire every 60 seconds, so that's kind of cool. Hopefully you enjoyed this video of me reviewing them. It was fun to do these kills and stuff, but sadly the weapons were a little bit underwhelming to me. But overall, they're still better than Kopesh's, they're still an upgrade, and they're fun to use, so I don't mind them. They're not bad, they're just not really, really good. They're like an average weapon, right? Do give the video a like if you did enjoy, subscribe if you're new for loads of future content all related to RuneScape 3, and until next time, see ya.